They come to me broken. I send them to God fixed.
They said the priest was a man of God, but God wasn't the one people feared when the basement door finally swung open. The coppers figured they'd find a stash of stolen chalices, maybe a few gold candlesticks gone missing over the years. Instead, they found bodies, 6 of them, stiff as marble, quiet as sin, and the man who'd been preaching salvation for 22 years? He was suddenly the main suspect in one of the darkest murder sprees New York had ever seen. It was April 45. The war was winding down, and the Bronx streets were buzzing. Father Charles Monroe, tall fella, deep voice, the kind of man who could talk the devil into confession, was a household name in St. Brigid's Parish. He ran food drives, prayed over the dying, even fixed squeaky pews himself. Folks swore he was the kind of priest who remembered your name, even if you only set foot in the church once. But the truth has a way of hiding in plain sight, and Father Charles, well, he had a taste for the broken ones. Drifters, ex-cons, lonely boys with nowhere to go. He'd bring them in for a private confession, and sometimes those confessions lasted hours. Some of those men never walked out again. It started quiet. 1934. A vagrant named Eddie was given work fixing pews. Vanished before payday. Nobody asked too many questions. By 39, more fellas were disappearing. A convict named Luis, a one-time altar boy named Michael, and 2 others who just seemed to evaporate after stepping onto church grounds. The city's missing persons files are thicker than a phone book, so the cases went cold. Then in March of 45, a man named Jerome Harris, just 29, bad off with drink, was seen ducking into the church one rainy night. No one ever saw him again. That's when the whispers started turning into suspicion. On April 2nd, the cops came knocking with a warrant. Some locals had heard hammering and dragging sounds coming from the church basement after dark. The uniforms were expecting a petty theft case. What they got was a smell, thick, metallic, and wrong. Under a rotting patch of floorboards, they found a trapdoor. Below it, a brick wall room that felt colder than the grave. In the far corner, 6 shallow pits. Some of the dead were wrapped in church linen. Some were still wearing the same rags they vanished in. The coroner said they'd been killed in all sorts of ways. Blunt force, strangulation, and a couple of cases with rope burn that matched the fancy cord from Father Charles's vestments. They even found an old confessional booth, modified to lock from the outside, blood in the cracks, invisible until the lab boys worked their magic. The killer's hunting ground wasn't an alley or a speakeasy. It was a house of God. Some folks thought maybe it'd help. There was a deacon who'd left town back in 36. Turned out he was clean. Others muttered about gang business, but the evidence kept circling back to one man, Father Charles. His robes, his cane, even his bathtub had traces. The kicker? A little leather journal in his desk, one page dated 1938.
They come to me broken.
They come to me broken. I send them to God
fixed.
The Fed said the killings were ritualistic, personal, like he was doing the Lord's work. But only after hearing something in confessional that made his blood boil. By August of 45, Father Charles was sitting in a Manhattan cell, claiming he'd been framed, said the bodies were planted to tarnish the church. The clergy stripped his name from the rolls, locked the basement for good. The families want the rope. Some want life without parole. Either way, the good father won't be hearing many more confessions. For more than a decade, St. Brigid's thought their priest was saving souls. Now New York is asking, how many did he send to meet their maker a little ahead of schedule? And in the quiet shadows of the city's churches, how many other basements are hiding secrets we haven't dug up yet? So tell me, folks, was Father Charles Monroe just a man of the cloth gone rotten? Or is there a bigger, darker game in play? The city's listening, and your guess might just be closer to the truth than you think.